Hello and welcome to CNBC Africa. I'm Enozi Pombanjwa. Welcome to our special focus of women in leadership, women of influence in South Africa. And of course, this is as we celebrate Women's Month in South Africa throughout the month of August. Today, we are in Africa's richest square mile, overlooking a backdrop of sky rises and skyscrapers in Sandton. And of course, I am standing with the CEO of Innate Investment Solutions. Her name is Lynette Ntuli, and she is probably one of the fiercest trailblazers in the property and built environment in South Africa. Lynette, what a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
And it's such a pleasure to be here with you today, Nozipo.
Thanks, Lynette. So I wanted to maybe start our conversation by allowing you to take us back a little bit to Lynette's journey. I mean, one of the things I know when I first heard about Lynette Ntuli was big news about this package of dynamite that was making waves in KwaZulu-Natal in the property management space. Where is Lynette now from the Lynette that first broke out many years ago?
So Lynette now is a lot older, a lot wiser, and certainly excited about new things in the property industry. And I mean, when I look back on those years and the foundation that they set up for me in this industry and the amount of learning and experimenting I was able to do through the help of some amazing mentors and amazing experiences that came with it, it certainly is now launching this next phase of my business life.
Yeah.
You know, I almost work in decades sometimes, and this is almost that second decade where you're beginning to now consolidate all of these experiences, some fresh ideas, because definitely where the built environment in South Africa was 10, 15 years ago when I arrived and where it is today are two completely different places. So I'm excited about the young woman who was, and the young woman who is, and the young woman who's still transitioning to the next stage of this career, of this business, of this economy, and of this country.
Lynette, I love the fact that you have taken your journey in almost a decade approach, but I also don't doubt that in each of these decades there have been some very deep lessons and insights that have carried you over the years. What are the big lessons? And I'm particularly interested in how the built environment in South Africa engages with young black women.
You know, Nozipo, property and real estate, as well as the built environment, is a long-term game. And nothing really works. You don't finish anything per se in a year or two. Everything works in almost 3 to 5 year phases. So you almost take the same approach back into your own life and into how you think and how you innovate as well. And it keeps you patient. And I think that is what property is very much about. A very capital intense industry, but also one that requires you to be very intentional about what you do, but patient with what you do, because certainly the returns also don't pop back to you within the first, the second, or even the third year at the best of times. And I've taken the same approach with myself, the patience to learn, the patience to surround myself with people as well as knowledge that will help me to be a better professional in this space. You know, you asked and made a very pointed remark about how it interacts with young black women. And I think for me, perhaps the most exciting part of the journey over the last decade has been to see more women come up through the ranks and join the industry at different levels and offering different services, as well as initiating some really great projects as well as funds. 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. And what these women have specifically brought is not just diversity, and have begun to show the property industry what true transformation used properly can actually do for the industry as well as the economy. But these women have brought a depth of context, a depth of lived experiences and insights that we begin to see in even how buildings as well as different types of structures that you and I get to enjoy and use are designed and interact with us as end users and are combined. You know, I look around us here and this is transport that gave birth to all of this. You know, we got the car train in the middle of it, and look at how this landscape in the last 5 years alone has changed, and the mall and everything else, and all of these people need to live, work and play in this particular industry and space. And women have brought a huge amount of depth as well as richness to the experience that you and I have in a space like this.
I love the comment about a contextualized lens that they've brought in, this idea of a lived experience that would be absent without women. But I also know you to be very passionate and deliberate about the kind of work that you do and the choices you make around the work that you do. And I'm keen to understand what's in your heart around the country's development agenda, and how does the work you do now contribute into that space?
You know, property in South Africa, and particularly in 2018 around the issue of land, is always a very emotive subject, and the industry right now is quite emotional about what does the short to medium term future hold with all of the policy discussions around the expropriation of land in the country. But I see another side. I see property, I see land, and at least our access to those resources and assets as hugely catalytic and transformative tools in building this society.
Yeah.
Not only will it create wealth and give us a new asset class to enjoy, as well as watch grow, and that'll create sustainability. But just if I look at from a skills perspective, if I look at an enterprise development perspective, if I look at the different pieces of the value chain in this particular industry, and I look at the potential for more types of asset classes and property types, particularly in areas of our country that remain undeveloped.
Yeah.
And the opportunity that exists for us to build and move on to new types of infrastructure to face some of the challenges that we have in our society. There is also a huge amount of potential, and there's just enough of a pie for all of us to share. So when I look at how I interact with this particular industry and what keeps me in it, what keeps me energized about it, it's looking at how can we as a business, how can I as an individual in the property sector take the gap.
Now let's move to the topic of leadership. I have the privilege of calling you a fellow as part of the Tutu Fellowship, and it's been really exciting to be able to share and observe your own leadership journey. And maybe I want to bring in the month of August in South Africa. This is always an opportunity for us to almost shine the spotlight on where women are and where women have stagnated and where women have accelerated. Leadership and women, what does that nexus look like where leadership and women meet? And how would you describe it? And in particular, how is it expressed through your own leadership?
Sure, fellow. I think never has there been a more opportune time for us as young women and women with varied experiences, both in a social context, an economic context, a cultural context, a political context, to bring those experiences to the table and really begin to contribute to some of the hard asks of society. I think, August this year makes me slightly sad when I look at the issues that surround women in our country today. I look at the numbers of women who really play a meaningful role in our economy. I look at the numbers of women who die at the hands of their partners and at the hands of perpetrators who almost get away with just mass murder of women. And I really have started to reflect on the fact that August is wonderful because it does put an important spotlight on our achievements. It does put an important spotlight on the issues that women face in the different parts of their lives. But I don't want us to only own a spotlight, recognition, as well as attention and awareness in August. How do we own the rest of the year with the multitude issues that we currently have? And I think as women perhaps who have platforms, women who have voices, women who have influences in the spaces that we find ourselves in, we do so much already, we contribute so richly to those spaces and to women around us. But how now do we unify those voices, those influences, and that leadership, and collaborate on meaningful and replicable programs as well as actions back into the society that's raised us and that sustains us to truly address some of the issues that we face in a society. How do we elevate the engagement? How do we elevate the causes? And how do we elevate, the discourse now around some of the challenges that women face and start saying, okay, how do we turn this around for all of us? And I think, we've played great individual games. We have done a lot in all the different spaces that we're in. But, if we don't elevate the conversation around how to lead and how to lead ourselves almost across some of these challenges. It stays as a vulture at the door. You're successful on your own, you're successful perhaps in a collective, but in a society that remains broken, are we sustainable?
What do you hope for this continent? And I'm talking in broad brushstrokes. I almost want to hear Lynette's own Agenda 2063. What does that look like?
Agenda 2063 for the African continent. My real hopes for the continent is that more and more we need new voices and new narratives created by us, for us. You know, the Africa Rising story is very much based on perception and analytical forecasting about who we are. But how many of us, particularly the young people who will be the leaders by 2063, and those of us who can influence the outcomes of 2063, are actually at the main tables related to the economy, to politics, to cultural diversity and inclusivity, and the vibrance of this continent? And for me, I really want that more and more we almost force the agenda that new faces, new voices, new narratives around the continent need to come to the fore. We need fresh ideas. We need to begin to engage as Africans differently. Because as much as we all exist on one continent, we've also been very fragmented by different causes, by our history, and by the different contexts that we continue to operate in. And I think also what we also need to do is celebrate ourselves more. There is so much that is happening on the African continent in different spaces. I think about art, I think about design, I think about sport, I think about education, technology, and how young Africans in particular are beginning to not only impact their societies, but how also the rest of the world is picking up on who we are, the colors of who we are, and what it is that we bring to the fabric of a global conversation. But are we following that up with really intensifying and drumming up who we are and the power of who we are, and how we're converting that power into potential opportunities as well as that growth story? So certainly I see a huge place for us to have richer conversations. I see a huge play for us to play together more, you know, with some of the ideas that we have and some of the spaces that we occupy. And I also see a huge opportunity for us to really augment and power behind our own stories and some of the work and the incredible work that is happening in the continent, and that is also happening and how we're influencing and shaping the rest of the world.
Well, there you have it. I couldn't have closed it better myself. We need to be the power and the driver behind our own stories. It's been such a pleasure speaking to Lynette Ntuli, and again, against a beautiful backdrop, the richest square mile in Africa. This is what property and built environment looks like, but most importantly, this is what leadership in property and the built environment looks like. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. I hope that you do stay tuned as we bring you even more powerful stories of amazing women that are influential and that are leading in corporate, in business, in civil society across South Africa. Goodbye.